He has made in reference to myself, and to assure your Royal Highness and His Lordship that I am a man.
Withering amid what the London Times later called the wildest shouts ever from so grave an assemblage, Longstreet jumped up and led the U.S. delegation out of the hall. Ambassador Dallas stayed seated on the dais, silent. The proceedings ended, and Dr. Delany became an international sensation.
Delany read the reactions to his action from America. Even Frederick Douglass spoke well of him. A new president had been elected, his plans for Africa delayed by war there, and too many days of watching birthdays of his children go by from his cramped little room in London, cold rain drizzling outside and streaking his window pane. He wrote that memories leapt to life and pierced his heart with a golden spear, or riddled his breast with precious stones. Memories such as that of Lucinda Snow, the blind girl in the Ohio asylum who played Rosebud on a piano for him shortly after his own dearest little daughter had just died. Nothing, Delany decided, could keep him from being home in Chatham, Ontario by Christmas. There was hope there. It was 1860. Delany went to President Lincoln himself with an idea to make the South Carolina coastline a new Israel for freed men and women who had been joining General Sherman's marching army across Georgia in the tens of thousands. First, Delany thought they would be an army of Africa, of able black men, recruited, trained, and then themselves becoming liberating soldiers. And after the war, these same men would become able keepers of the land, the same land that General Sherman had promised them in South Carolina in January of that same year. General Sherman tentatively gave, subject to the approval of the president, of course, tens of thousands of acres of land, once owned by the plantation owners, to the freedmen. Each family, Sherman ordered, would get 40 acres, a place in the sun, and one army mule on loan. If Abeokuta failed to be Martin Delany's promised land, the Carolina coastline would be his Israel. On a cold, clammy, damp morning at 8 a.m. on February 8th, Delany was welcomed by President Lincoln into his study at the White House. Lincoln had followed Delany's doings for years. He knew him.
On entering the executive chamber and being introduced to His Excellency, a generous grasp of the hand brought me to a seat in front of him.
What can I do for you, sir?
Nothing, Mr. President, but I've come to propose something to you, which I think will be beneficial to this nation in this critical hour of her peril.
Go on, sir.
Delany and Lincoln discussed the value of black leaders for freed black Americans and how so many feared black leadership.
This is the very thing I've been looking and hoping for, but nobody offered it. I have talked about it, I hoped and prayed for it, but till now it never has been proposed. When I issued the Emancipation Proclamation, I had this thing in contemplation. I then gave them a chance by prohibiting any interference on the part of the Army, but they did not embrace it.
But, Mr. President, these poor people could not read your proclamation.
While he spoke, Lincoln was writing on a piece of paper.
Honorable E.M. Stanton, Secretary of War, do not fail to have an interview with this most extraordinary and intelligent black man. A. Lincoln. Stanton is firing. Listen. He is in his glory. Noble man.
What is it, Mr. President?
Why, don't you know? Haven't you heard the news? Charleston's ours.
Martin Delany, later in April, caught a stage for the cradle of Southern animosities, Charleston, South Carolina, a state which turned by the magic stroke of a pen and the raising of a sword into a new land of opportunity. And he reported to General Rufus Saxton, a strong protector of the freedmen, and he commanded the occupation forces in South Carolina.
I entered the city which from earliest childhood and through life I had learned to contemplate with feelings of the utmost abhorrence. where the sound of the lash at the whipping post, the hammer of the auctioneer were coordinate sounds in thrilling harmony, such as might well have vied the infamous king of Dahomey. For a moment, I found myself dashing in unmeasured strides through the city. Again, I halted to look upon the shattered walls of the once stately but now deserted edifices, and but for the vigilance and fidelity of the colored firemen, there would have been nothing left but a smoldering plain of ruins in the place where Charleston once stood.
Chief Justice Salmon Chase said in Charleston, "A great race numbering 4 million is suddenly brought into freedom. All the world is looking to see whether the prophecies of the enemies of that race will be fulfilled or falsified. It rests upon the men of that race to tell." Delany made it in time to see the flags changed at Fort Sumter, with his son, a young private, also there, and his old friend and comrade in arms, William Lloyd Garrison, who, as he bade goodbye to a large, adoring audience in Charleston, said, "I have always advocated non-resistance, but this much I say to you, come what may, never will you submit again to slavery. Do anything. Die first.